Everyone, today's Bible reading is from Psalm 115. Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory, because of your love and faithfulness. Why do the nations say, where is their God? Our God is in heaven, but he does whatever pleases him. But their idols are silver and gold made by human hands. They have mouths but cannot speak, eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, noses but cannot smell. They have hands but cannot feel, feet but cannot walk, nor can they utter a sound with their throats. Those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them. All you Israelites, trust in the Lord. He is their help and shield. House of Aaron, trust in the Lord. He is their help and shield. You who fear him, trust in the Lord. He is their help and shield. The Lord remembers us and will bless us. He will bless his people Israel. He will bless the house of Aaron. He will bless those who fear the Lord, small and great alike. May the Lord cause you to flourish, both you and your children. May you be blessed by the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. The highest heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he has given to mankind. It is not the dead who praise the Lord, those who go down to the place of silence. It is we who extol the Lord both now and forevermore. Praise the Lord.
Richard Dawkins, you have probably heard of, scientist and probably the world's most prominent atheist, published his well-known book back in 2006, The God Delusion. And that publishing of that book was like a bomb going off, really. Created a real stir. I particularly felt that at that time. It was my first year of full-time student ministry on campus at the University of Queensland. And so every uni student, it seemed, was reading that book. And it was kind of, the atheists had a real swagger about them around the campus, that finally the issue had been resolved. God was dead. He wasn't real. Amazon says of the book and Dawkins' writing, he eviscerates the major arguments for religion and demonstrates the supreme improbability of a supreme being. He shows how religion fuels war, foments bigotry, and abuses children. The God Delusion makes a compelling case that belief in God is not just wrong, but potentially deadly. Well, it's not just a recent issue, is it? Throughout the ages, people have doubted the reality of God. In ages past, the disagreement really was more about whose God was real, whose God was more powerful. You think about the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel there, having that out-and-out competition to see whose God was real, proved by his power. When two countries in the ancient world went to war, the result was understood to be determined by whose God had the most power. In the modernist era, that is the last couple of centuries, the debate has been whether any God is real, or if atheism is in fact true. And in this century, the debate's shifted from there to something probably more abstract as to whether it even matters at all. The suggestion being that any idea of God is merely a God of our own making. Whatever idea we've come up with, it's our own idea. And so that it's fine if this imagined idea is of some use to us as an individual, if it helps us find meaning and purpose and get through life. But of course, he's not real. And it's okay as long as we don't want to assert that reality of God on anyone else. So who's right? Is God real? And what difference does it make if he is for us, his people? These are the ideas that the psalmist explores in Psalm 115 back in his day, and they're as relevant today. For the next 3 weeks, today included, we're looking at a few psalms together, particularly highlighting the reasons that we have to praise God. Psalm 115, which is read to us, is part of what's known as the Egyptian Hallel. And taken together, Psalm 113 through to 118 were an act of praise which included reflection on the Exodus events. They weren't necessarily all written in that time, but they included reflection on that, and they were used in the Passover festival. And so as such, there's a strong likelihood that this psalm was amongst that group of psalms and was read at Jesus' Last Supper as he prepared for his death. The opening verse of the psalm there is really quite unique in the whole book of Psalms and provides a kind of header to us. It starts this way: "Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory because of your love and faithfulness." This opening verse has got a real kind of atmosphere of great deliverance. Either something that's perhaps just happened, that's present, or that's anticipated, that's still to come. It's either a declaration of triumph or it's a kind of plea for help, though a supremely confident plea for help, that God will save his people, not for their sake, but really for his. The emphasis is thrown fully upon the Lord, upon Yahweh their God. Some crisis concerns the glory of God's name, his reputation, and leads the congregation to pray that the Lord will restore glory and honour to his name. The psalmist calls for God to act so that the name of God might receive the glory that is due to it. He knows that God's name deserves glory because he has kept his steadfast love with his people and remained faithful to his promises. Current circumstances, whatever they are, and it's not completely clear to us, do not dissuade the psalmist from acknowledging who God is and what he has been to the people of God. God's glory is the agenda throughout. And then in verse 2, the kind of theological and existential crisis is pinpointed for us as they ask, where is their God? It says, why do the nations say, where is their God? Our God is in heaven. He does whatever pleases him. This exchange with the nations suggests a time in Israel where they either were or have recently been exposed to the taunts of the nations. And it's possible that we're post the exile in Babylon, and they're kind of trying to come back to the promised land. They're looking for God to elevate his glory, and the nations are going, where's their God? Clearly he has no power. They've been carried off into a foreign land and all these kinds of things. If that's the context, then it's because of their own sinfulness and the exile which followed that God's name has been profaned among the nations. And notice the posture of the nations, that they deny the real God. And the pagan's pride is in what he can see. He is contemptuous of what he cannot see. Where is your God? They say, where is your God? He is not real. Show me. I can't see him. Prove it to me. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? There's lots of biblical examples of this. Pharaoh approaches Moses in much the same way. When Moses says, I want to take, God says, let my people go. And he says, who says? Which God? I don't know your God. When Goliath mocks the Israelite army under King Saul, he's mocking their God. He's big and powerful because his God's big and powerful. And where's your God? What's he going to do? Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon in kind of Daniel's time. Where is your God? The neighbouring countries post-exile as well. Of course, all gods except for Israel's, back in those times, were depicted as idols. You could see them, you could touch them, you could locate them and point to where they were. The Philistines could say in Goliath's day, in Saul's day, look, here is our God Dagon, and he resides in that temple in that city. That's where he is, and we can bring him with us into battle if we want to have success. Nebuchadnezzar could say in Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego's day, look, here is my God, this big statue that I expect you to bow down to. But where is your God, Israel? Where is your God, Moses, David, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego? Well, he was formless. We cannot see him. So apparently he must not exist. The Roman Empire said to the early Christians, where is your God? We cannot see him. He is not real. He must not exist. Or perhaps, in fact, we did see him, but we saw him killed. He is dead. He does not exist. And the world says to us today as Christian people, where is your God? He is not real. We cannot see him. He must not exist. And this has always been the case for God's people. Uniquely in the world, God, the true God, the God of Israel, forbade idols. They were the one nation that was to not make idols of their God. Different to all the other gods of all the other nations, he was never to be depicted as an idol. See, people are naturally so materialistic. We're drawn to what we can see and touch, and we make that our universe. Even superstitious people of ancient cultures wanted something they could see and touch. Even religious people of all times and all cultures make icons and idols. Even animistic people of tribal cultures today will put some spiritual power on something physical. And certainly secular humanists of Western cultures in the last 50 years are materialists to their core. Humans naturally limit our notion of God to something that is like us, to something that we can see and touch and understand and ultimately that we can control. And if we do not find this convincing or credible, well, then we just deny God altogether. But the true God is not limited in this way. The true God will not be limited in this way. He cannot be seen because he is invisible. He is not located somewhere because he is omnipresent. He's everywhere at once. He cannot be contained because he's immeasurable. He's far too big for our minds and imaginations, let alone for an idol. He cannot be controlled because he's omnipotent. He's all-powerful. And he is in total control of everything. Even when Jesus came to earth in the incarnation, God became a human and limited himself to time and place and a material body. Even he said to Pilate when he was being quizzed, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." This material thing that you humans are just so caught up in, my kingdom's something far bigger, far grander. I am not limited in the ways that you naturally think I am. Verse 3 tells us what is true about the true God, that he is real and he is ultimate. Though the nations neither see nor acknowledge it, the truth about our God is that our God is in heaven. He does whatever pleases him. He is in heaven, that is, he's not part of the creation. He's not the sun, he's not the moon, he's not something like that, and he's not something that we have made. He's not located within a temple or present in an idol. The true God is too great to tie down to any image or even to earth itself. He's not the prisoner of circumstances, he is their master. He is a God to glory in. And so consequently, he does whatever pleases him. That is, what he does freely. The ESV says he does all that pleases him. He's not inhibited in any way. He has no competition. Nothing can frustrate his plans and purposes. And he does what he does pleases him. He acts for his own good pleasure, for his own glory, what the psalmist is calling him to do again. He's not answerable to some other or some higher power for whose benefit he must act. He doesn't respond to someone else's initiative. He pleases himself. If you're familiar with Old Testament stories, you remember that when the Lord of Israel triumphs in clear and public ways in the Old Testament, this is exactly the nature of the declaration that is made. Often not only by God's people in triumph, but sometimes by his defeated enemies. That idea that Yahweh is the true God and he is in heaven. He does what he wants. You think about when Daniel is rescued from the lion's den. The king the next day says, "Your God, Daniel, is the true God. Let everyone know." When Esther and the Jews are rescued from Haman's schemes in Persia, the declaration is that their God is the true God and everyone will worship him. And even the centurion at the cross, having watched Jesus crucified, says something similar. Surely this man was the Son of God. Then in verses 4 to 8 we have described to us the idol worship of the nations. Let me reread those verses. But their idols are silver and gold made by human hands. They have mouths but cannot speak, eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, noses but cannot smell. They have hands but cannot feel, feet but cannot walk, nor can they utter a sound with their throats. Those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them. Idols are material. They are not infinite, but are manufactured goods made with human hands. Finite, limited in every way. Notice the list of all the things that idols cannot do. They cannot speak. The God of the Bible, the true God, is the one who speaks his word, and it is powerful and it reveals himself to people. But idols cannot speak. Idols cannot see. They have no kind of moral oversight. They cannot hear, so they can't respond to someone's prayer. They cannot smell, which perhaps picks up on the kind of language you get in Leviticus of when a sacrifice is offered, the aroma rises to the Lord. And so perhaps it's picking up on the fact that they can't forgive sin through sacrifice if they can't smell. They cannot feel. They have no care. They cannot walk. They can't move. They can't act or do anything. They cannot utter a sound in their throats, which the commentaries tell me is kind of a murmuring, pondering idea, suggesting that they can't even think. These verses echo the typical kind of Old Testament view of idols and idolaters. If you want to read some really kind of mocking, wonderful descriptions, go to Isaiah kind of chapter 40 to 46. But on the one hand, there's no spiritual force or reality behind the idol. It's just physical, it's hollow, it's nothing. It didn't represent a real invisible God. It had no more reality than the thing that was made. And then on the other hand, the Old Testament holds that idea in tension with that the idols did seem to have real power in the way that they could destroy their worshippers. Deuteronomy 4 is foundational to this understanding in the Old Testament. And as I said, there's some cracking passages in Isaiah chapter 40, 41, 44, 45 and 46. Just mocking idols, mocking those who make them. Kind of saying, come on idol, do something. And they just can't. And so those who worship them and put their confidence in them are condemned. Verse 8 there, those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them. Trusting an idol that is just a block of wood or a piece of metal really is stupid. It fails. It does not work. It cannot work, the psalmist says. These idols are foolish, and so to worship them makes you a fool. These idols are dead, and so to worship them will have you end in the same way. And then most of us are not from cultures that worship physical idols. Perhaps some of us are, but most of us Westerners find this pretty straightforward. To go, yes, well, idols are silly. We don't do that in our culture. We aren't prone to worshipping idols of gold or stone or wood. But we need to ask, what are the idols in our culture? Timothy Keller, pastor and author, in his book Counterfeit Gods, helpfully defines idols as anything other than the true God which we look to give meaning to our lives or to give us self-worth. And so idolatry is kind of fundamental to the nature of sin. And so in our culture, it's things like money and wealth and possessions that we are looking to for meaning and significance and security, self-worth. We look to popularity, the acceptance or approval of others to define us. Some of us look to power, career, success and achievement to give meaning to our lives. Some of us idolise comfort and ease and pleasure and just kind of control of our circumstances as the means by which we have self-worth. I think that's a growing one in our culture. We easily miss it, don't we, when it comes to our own idols. But these too are just as weak and frivolous as a stone idol. They promise to give us things they can't. They promise to give us meaning and purpose and significance and hope. and they cannot do what we want them to do. They cannot achieve for us what we want them to achieve. They cannot be trusted, relied upon for what we are trusting and relying upon them for. And we who make them become like them. They are foolish, and so worshipping them makes us fools. They are dead, and so worshipping them causes us to spiritually die. So our God is the true God. He is real. Idols, making them, worshipping them, is foolish and makes us into fools. And then for the rest of the psalm, from verse 9 onwards, the psalmist reflects on what it means for God's people because we know our God is real and because we know that our God is the real God. And he points to three things. These verses 9 to 11 at least, and possibly right through 9 to 15, may well have been sung responsively in worship. Either the congregation responding to a worship leader, or two halves of the congregation. And so it gets trickier in the later verses, but we're going to try and do it in verses 9 to 11. I meant to highlight this on the screen there to make it easier. I'm going to read the first line of each verse, and you guys are going to respond. Here's their help and shield, right? So from verse 9, all you Israelites, trust in the Lord.
He is their help and shield.
Come on, give me some enthusiasm. House of Aaron, trust in the Lord.
He is their help and shield.
You who fear him, trust in the Lord.
He is their help and shield.
All right, that's kind of how this was done in the congregation. The psalmist, through the worship leader, calls on the Israelites, the regular people of the tribes of Israel, to trust in the Lord. He calls on the house of Aaron, that is the priests, to trust in the Lord. And all you who fear him is kind of a broader category that includes all who worship the Lord. So that the Israelites, the priests, and possibly also non-ethnic Israelite worshippers who are among them, everyone is to trust in the Lord. The point, unlike the fool who trusts in idols, is that the people of God, all of them, are to trust in the Lord their God. Glory belongs to him because of his love and faithfulness, back in verse 1. He is the true God who does all that he pleases, in verse 3. And so his people who have been loved by him, saved by him, and who are loyal to him in covenant relationship, they are to trust him throughout the ages. He is their help and shield. This is all about God's power to save his people. This is what's true about him. It was true for Abraham and Sarah as they followed him into a new land. He would be their help and shield. It was true in the Exodus generation as they were rescued from Egypt. He was their help and shield. It was true for the Israelite army as Joshua led them into the promised land. As David later led them against the Philistines, he was their help and shield. Yahweh, the Lord, is their help and shield. He is their help and their protection. As the true God in heaven who does what pleases him, he acts in power to save his people. Of course, as God's people today, we know this is true for us also. God has shown us this ultimately in the person and work of Christ. In Christ, God is our help. He rescues us from our ultimate enemy of sin and death. In Christ, God is our shield as he protects us from Satan's attacks, tempting us away from devotion to Christ, and as he preserves us and perseveres us for the day of salvation. And as the Father and Son send God the Holy Spirit to indwell us, God is our help and shield in a way that these Old Testament saints couldn't have even imagined, with a closeness that the Old Testament people of God just didn't know. This doesn't mean that nothing can physically or emotionally harm us. It isn't a promise of perfect health, perfect grades at school or uni, perfect success, perfect marriage, perfect anything. It's a promise that he has and will save us eternally. And he has delivered us from and will continue to protect us from our greatest enemy, sin and death. By his power, he will give us ultimate and eternal victory. And it's a promise that his provision for us in the day-to-day things of life is an expression of his unfailing love and faithfulness, his overwhelming generosity and his perfect wisdom. And so trust in the Lord, for he is our help and shield. The psalmist continues in verses 12 to 15, outlining what it means for God's people, because we know our God is real and because we know our God is the real God. We know that he will bless us, and so we anticipate his blessing. From verse 12, the Lord remembers us and will bless us. He will bless his people Israel. He will bless the house of Aaron. He will bless those who fear the Lord, small and great alike. May the Lord cause you to flourish, both you and your children. May you be blessed by the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. The psalmist proclaims first in verses 12 to 13 that he will bless us. And then he prays in verses 14 and 15 that the Lord will continue to bless his people. His people Israel, the house of Aaron, those who fear the Lord, small and great alike, it's the same categories that he's given us before. God remembers us, that is, he is mindful of us. We are not forgotten if we've been through a time of hardship. We are not forgotten if we have sinned and returned to him in repentance. And so all of us, every group, every type of person, every generation can anticipate the blessing of the Lord and indeed depend upon this if we are to truly flourish. If we were to go back to Deuteronomy 28, we get kind of the richest description of what it meant for God to bless his people as they went into the promised land. If they were to maintain their side of the covenant relationship, God promised to bless them generation after generation. Notice in these verses the clear and very deliberate contrast to the mute, the powerless idols of the nations. Our God, the true God, knows us. He is mindful of us and he acts to bless us. Highlighting this further at the end of verse 15, the psalmist returns again to describe who God is. He is the Lord Yahweh, the covenant God of Israel. He's the maker of heaven and earth. As the maker of, he's sovereign over all realms, the all-powerful one who has infinite resources, infinite control, infinite ability. He is the one in whom we place our confidence. He is the one upon whom we depend. He is the one in whose provision we rest. His blessing is the basis of our flourishing. We should not give credit to anyone or anything else when things go well for us. And we cannot truly flourish without him. Finally, we return to the place of the people in responding to the God who is real. As his people, we trust in God, we anticipate his blessing. And then the psalm closes by having the congregation sing of their renewed dedication to praise the Lord in response to his blessing. So fundamentally, we are creatures of praise. In our essence, at our core, we are created to bring him praise and glory. I'll read verses 16 to 18. The highest heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth he has given to mankind. It is not the dead who praise the Lord, those who go down to the place of silence. It is we who extol the Lord, both now and forevermore. Praise the Lord. In contrast to the Lord who dwells and rules from the heavens, dwells in and rules from the heavens, the realm of people is here in the earth. While we live on it, we are to praise the Lord. In the psalmist's mind, those who are dead cannot praise the Lord. Verse 17 there, it isn't denying the Old Testament hope for the afterlife. It's certainly not denying what we now understand in terms of heaven and the new creation. But death is seen to be a place of silence when it comes to praising the Lord. To be alive is to praise God. To be dead is to be silent. And so instead, we who are alive are to extol the Lord, both now and forevermore. It's likely here the psalmist meant that the community of the faithful, the people of Israel, would continue to praise the Lord generation after generation. This side of Christ, we know that we who are by faith part of the covenant community of God's people will personally praise him for all eternity. All of us, from every tribe and nation and tongue. Fundamental to our humanity, to our purpose as humans, is that we should praise the Lord while we are here on God's earth. What a wonderful privilege to begin that now. And because of the salvation that we have in Jesus, what a wonderful privilege to continue that into all eternity. So is God real, and what difference does it make for us as his people? Well, our world says no, God is not real. And depending on your generation, it adds that it makes no difference at all if any notion of God is real or not. As long as it helps you and harms no one else, and you just keep it to yourself. But our God is real. And our God is the real God. He is the one true God, and it makes all the difference. False idols, whether physical or the ones that we express in our culture, making them and worshipping them is foolish and makes us into fools. In contrast, our God is the true God. He is real, he is infinite, he is limitless in power, and he rules over all things and all people. And so we, God's people, made to be part of his family by his mercy and grace, by his unfailing love and faithfulness, we have reason to praise him. To him be the glory. We can trust him to help and protect us, and we can anticipate and delight in the blessing he provides. And so we give to him all the glory and praise he rightly deserves, both now and forevermore. Let me finish with the first and last verse. Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory, because of your love and faithfulness. It is we who extol the Lord, both now and forevermore. Praise the Lord. God, we have so much to praise you for. We praise you most of all for your love and faithfulness to us, shown most clearly in the life, death and resurrection of your Son Jesus for us. That you would love us unconditionally, that you would faithfully fulfill all your promises and give us an eternal hope through him, just astounds us. And so we praise you, God. Lord, we acknowledge that you are real, you are the one true God. Lord, we repent of the idols that we make up in our own minds, the things that we look to for meaning and significance and security, that we've wrongly put our trust in. Whether it be wealth, comfort, control, material things, the acceptance and approval of others. Lord, we repent of those things because they are foolish and they are false, and they will lead us to the way of death. Lord, instead we want to trust you, because you are our help and shield. You provide and you protect. You save us. We put our confidence in your blessing, and we anticipate your blessing in our life, that you will give to us what you know is best and what is good for our true flourishing. And we want to live, Lord, today, this week, this year, personally, in our households and families, and as a church, as Capera Baptist. We want this year to be about praising you. Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name be the glory, because of your love and faithfulness.